What's up YouTube? I'm Alex Carpenter, and today I wanted to talk to you about how to build conditional layouts with CSS. We can see here in my wireframe I have kind of a website layout that's pretty common. We'll have our header here, we'll have our main content, we'll have a sidebar, and then we'll also have a footer. And what I mean by conditional layouts is that some of our pages on our website are not going to have content to fill the sidebar. So we want to hide that if that's the case. But what we want to happen is this main content just fills the available space and accounts for that sidebar being gone. Another thing that we want to account for is some of our pages aren't going to have content that fills the whole viewport. So when that happens, we don't want the footer to ride up to the bottom of that content. We want it to stay anchored at the bottom of our web page. So that's kind of what I mean by the idea behind conditional layouts. It's really thinking about how we're building websites to account for these certain situations without having to write a bunch of extra markup or classes that say when the sidebar is gone, we add a class to this wrapping element that says there is no sidebar, and then change that CSS based on that. We want our CSS to kind of work in a way that is flexible to account for these certain situations. So let's go and hide that for a sec here, and let's start building out what we were seeing in our wireframe. So we're gonna have a header, we're gonna have our footer, and we'll have a main content area. So let's just, for the sake of this, let's go with add an H1 here, and that's going to be our header content. In our main content, we're going to have, let's add a class here that's class main, and we're going to have our main content. Let's just add some paragraphs in here. Let's also add one image in here as well. So let's do image, and we'll just do placehold it. 1600 by 900. And then let's also do our main sidebar. And in our main sidebar, let's just do one paragraph here. Lastly, let's add our footer content. So let's do footer content. All right, so that should be a good amount of markup to get started and kind of demonstrate what we're going for here. So we reload the browser, we can see that content show up. Perfect. All right, so now let's go over to our style sheet here. And to start, what we'll want to do is add some styles to our body element. So we want our body element to span 100% width and have a min height of 100% of the viewport. Next, what we want to do is add a display flex to our body, and we want that to be a flex direction of column. So this page shouldn't change at all in terms of what's happening, but what we're going to do is account for that second conditional situation that we wanted to talk about, or that we wanted to demonstrate, is that the footer always stays at the bottom of the page. And how we can do that now that we have a display flex on the body is do a margin top of auto on our footer. And now you can see that that jumps to the bottom of the page here. Let's go and add some padding here. So now, no matter what, you can see we don't have enough content to fill our page here. So we didn't want that footer to be riding up below our content. We always wanted it to be anchored at the bottom of the page. So that's kind of a way to think about writing CSS in a way that accounts for those certain situations, that conditional layout that I was mentioning. Next, let's start targeting our main content area. Let's give our header a padding as well. All right, so next on our main element, let's do padding 0 to rem on there. All right, so now we got that set up. Next, what we want to do is get our elements in line with each other, so we'll do a display flex on that as well. So we have our main content here on the left and our sidebar here on the right. But we want our main content to span two-thirds of our viewport. So main content, we can do width, calc, 100%. We'll multiply that by 2/3. And we'll copy that. And main sidebar, we want that one to span 1/3. Alright, so now we got our side-by-side layout for our main content, but we need to add that gutter into our main content here. So when we think about this is we want to start thinking about what will be there always and what will conditionally be there. And we know that sidebar is going to be conditionally displayed. So what we want to do is add that gutter to our sidebar. So now when our sidebar is visible, you can see we have our gutter, but when our sidebar is hidden, that gutter will be gone. So now what we need to account for is our main content, which will, we don't want this width to be on here. We actually want to use a flex declaration and do flex 1. So now we can see our main content stretches the whole page, but let's say our sidebar is visible. Now we can see that sidebar shows up at 1/3 width, and then we also have our gutter in here. So if this, let's say, we'll just comment the margin left out of there. Let's say we added it to our main content. This should work just as we were showing before, but when that sidebar is hidden, you can see now we still have that margin right of 2 rem on this. So that's when we're thinking about building these types of layouts. These are the things that we want to start thinking about and applying CSS to them that works in a flexible way to account for these situations without needing to know that the sidebar is there or not. So now we're kind of back to where we were. We have a flexible sidebar and main content that accounts for a sidebar being there and not being there. And then we also have a footer that is always positioned at the bottom of our viewport, which is what we were going for as well. So that's kind of the idea behind conditional layouts and a way to start thinking about organizing your CSS or writing your CSS in a way that is resilient and doesn't have to have a bunch of overrides to account for these certain situations. So that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching.